What's up, Sushi Squad? We back against more Trove. I kind of messed up the intro, but we're gonna go with it. So, if you guys didn't already check out the title of the video, you more than likely have already seen somebody yelling it in the comments down below. So I'll just get right to the point. The Bard comes out next Tuesday, the 15th. Yep, that's right. The Bard is already coming out on PC. I don't know about consoles. I'm sorry, guys. We don't have a release date for that. The devs never have a release date for the console version of the game, and it kind of sucks. Now, you know, in theory, we do have Nintendo Direct at E3 going on the 15th, so we might see some news about Trove launching on the Switch. In which case, I've talked about this before, but I have a theory that they are trying to get the Bard out on PC as quick as possible so that they can get the console version nice and patched and ready and everything. Which the funny thing is, you guys on console still haven't even gotten the Chloromancer rework, which tells me they're probably going to drop that bundled with the Bard. It seems like they just kind of ended up delaying it, and then you guys will end up getting a nice big update all at once. Now, the interesting thing, which, again, you know, this is just a random little theory here, is we've got Twitch drops for Trove right now, which, of course, I don't stream on Twitch, so doesn't really affect me, but it's been really helping out Joe's channel, so that's really cool. But anyways, the Twitch drops end July 8th, which means that maybe by next month you guys will end up seeing the Bard July 6th, possibly, just because we always end up seeing updates for Trove on a Tuesday. So July 6th would be obviously the Tuesday just before the Twitch drops end, or you would get on July 13th, which would be the week after the Twitch drops, if they're trying to release the Bard within that Twitch drop ratio. But honestly, we'll just have to wait and see. Now, anyways, you guys are probably wondering why this video is a little bit longer than it needs to be, just talking about a release date. And that's because I wanted to kind of run you guys through everything about the Bard just really nice and quick so that you guys kind of had a better understanding of it, because I get very, very common questions about the Bard, and I haven't particularly had a video talking about how this character is going to work specifically, how his abilities work, how it synergizes and everything. But the fact that the Bard is already coming out next week means that we can finally talk about all this stuff in a video, because the reason I kind of have been avoiding it all this time is because they've been slowly patching the Bard like constantly on the test server, and it seems like now he's actually in a really, really good place. So in short, you know, first and foremost, what damage type is the character going to use? Magic damage. What weapon type is the character going to end up using? You're going to end up using a fist weapon. But the weird thing about the Bard is that even if you end up taking your fist off of your Vanguard, let me show you guys this just because it's really interesting. So we can see that the fist in my inventory does magic damage while I am on the Bard, and then swaps automatically to physical damage when I'm on the Vanguard. Makes me wonder why they even have two damage types in this game. But either way, so that means you can literally just swap your Vanguard's crystal fist anyways. But of course, the face and hat are still going to end up having to be like focused towards magic damage, or at least the face is specifically. And then it means you're going to have to use all your magic gems, a magic ring. Energy regen can be okay for a magic ring. I don't know if I would necessarily say that that is the absolute best thing that you can do. But we're not going to necessarily go into the build of the character just yet, because we can end up doing that when the class goes live. However, you can kind of just get a good idea just based off of the gear that I'm using. The ally I would use is a movement speed ally. Arcane Emblem if you're trying to do big boy damage. Otherwise, you can swap that for Trailblazing. Unyielding Emblem is just my go-to just because of the defensive probabilities of it. And then his basic attack is going to end up being kind of a really close range shot, but his class gem is going to end up changing that. His class gem is going to end up make it so that the Bard has increased attack range and Bard songs increase effectiveness. So the Bard songs are quite literally going to end up being the ultimate ability, which we'll get into in just a moment. Your right click is going to end up being kind of a Neon Ninja backflip. It's really quick and it's really weird. It does damage as an arc in front of you, as you can see, but it also does make us invisible, which makes it so that we can't take damage, at least for a brief moment. It's not really that big of a deal. I barely ever use this ability just because the attack scaling of it is not really that great. Most of all because what this guy scales off of is his normal attacks are actually super duper strong, which again we'll get into in a moment. So your number one ability, this is where the support aspect of this character comes in, is your number one ability is going to be throwing down one of these, which The initial throw doesn't do any damage or anything like that, but you can press the ability again to make it explode, and thus it'll end up dealing damage to enemies. However, if we combine this with our ultimate ability, which I'll go into detail in a moment, we can end up using, our ult, and then anything that is within our radius, like any players that are within our radius or in the radius of our number 1 right here, is going to end up receiving the Bard buff. Now, the Bard's ult is weirdly confusing. It's not as confusing as you guys would think it is, but it's definitely the most complex character in the game because technically speaking, this guy has 4 different ults. So the first one is going to end up being purple. Let's just call them by their colors just so it's easier to remember, because I honestly have no idea what half of them are called. So the epic riff, or the purple one, basically is going to be starting the ult, right? Like it's setting up this timer that you can see right here, which is about to end up running out, but I cast the ult again. Whoop, it brings the timer all the way back up. Then there's going to end up being all these bad boys right here, which are going to end up being referred to as stacks. So as you end up performing specific actions that the game wants us to, we're going to build up stacks and we get various benefits for that. However, you can see that at the first stack, we're going to end up having the Jubilant Song, which will be the green ult, right? What this is going to end up doing is actually giving allies a chance to restore energy when dealing damage, blah, 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 but it doesn't matter because most of all, it gives us movement speed. So you are constantly going to be spamming this ability, not only for yourself, but also for other people as well. So if I cast it right now, you can see that any other player that would be in this radius would end up receiving the ultimate ability of the green movement speed, right? And you can see right here that there is still a timer of the buff in the top left, because the buff itself lasts for 30 seconds, even though the aura around the player does not last that long, meaning that everyone would continuously benefit from this ultimate ability so long as you, even if you just wander off on your own, like you could just get the buff from the Bard and then just wander away, right? But the interesting thing is that if you want to end up just keeping the buff constantly, you can just press your number 2, use your ult, use your green ult, and then you pretty much just wait on cooldown and you could just continuously do the same thing over and over again. However, there are different ultimate abilities as you end up building up more stacks. And in order to build up more stacks, you either do the action that is representative on the top of your character or down here by your ultimate ability. So it wants me to dodge, it wants me to dodge, it wants me to dodge, and as you can see, we are slowly cycling through not only building up stacks but different colors that are representative of the different ultimate abilities. So let's get into the blue ult right here, which is basically going to make it so that we end up doing lifesteal. I don't personally use this one very much because the lifesteal is just not good enough. Maybe it would be good if it was used on another character, which of course the Bard can end up giving the ultimate buff to another character as well. But generally speaking, the healing just doesn't really work in Trove anyways, right? Now, the interesting thing is that you'll notice when our timer runs out, we're actually losing all of the stacks, because the higher the stack value, the more powerful we're going to end up having our basic attacks. And also it's going to end up consuming a certain amount of stacks in order to end up using each of the different ultimate abilities. So right now we've actually got the red ult, which is going to end up being probably the absolute best one. It's going to consume 3 stacks to use it. So you're constantly having to build the stacks back over and over. But this is going to end up being an attack damage buff. So it's going to give you an extra attack percentage on pretty much any character, which makes him really, really useful for buffing other people, just in their own party type of thing, right? Now, let's get into how you're going to end up using this guy effectively at the end game, which is actually just constantly building stacks. Because each of the ultimate abilities is going to end up lasting a full 30 seconds, or at least the buff is, what we're trying to constantly do is, thread the needle and always be at 7 stacks. So as soon as you get to this big chungus stack right here, our attacks are actually doing 700% more damage. Only our basic attacks, not all of our other attacks. But the point is that you can just constantly stay on this razor's edge of keeping your ultimate stacks at 7 while also simultaneously keeping your ults going at all times. And let's just say that you end up getting all the way up, right? Say you ended up getting all of your stacks. So how do you end up resetting your timer when the last ability right here is going to end up being the battle buff, which is the red buff? Well, you use the battle buff. That's going to consume 3 stacks. And then you can see that the purple one is right here, which is the epic riff again. Sorry, water keeps going down the wrong tube. I don't know why. Meaning that you could just use it again, and then it brings up your time with your ultimate. And then ho ho ho, what's this? Another green, which means we get more movement speed, so we'll consume that, and then all we gotta do is just do one thing, and then we're still in the big boy damage, but we also have movement speed and the battle buff, which is going to end up giving us more damage as well. So the entirety of the character is trying to, at least at the end game, I don't think you're gonna need to do this stuff so much at the beginning of the game, but you're trying to keep yourselves at 7 stacks just so that you have the extra damage. You're also trying to keep the buff of the battle ult, just, you know, the red ult, so that you end up having increased damage. And then you're also trying to keep your green ult up at all times, just so that you end up having the movement speed. Which again, means that it's a really complicated character because you're basically going to be spamming all of your abilities at all times. Overall though, it's a great character. It is fantastic for speed farming. Can end up being a really, really good support character, and can in fact deal quite a bit of damage at the end game. I was actually able to solo both U8 and U9 Leviathans respectively as this guy, and I think that I would be able to solo a U10 Leviathan just because the damage is there, but soloing a U10 Leviathan is just stupid because of the fact that it can always one-shot you with its ability. The ability is very, very glitchy, and generally you're always going to want to just have like at least 2 people, if not more, to handle a U10 Leviathan. This is, of course, like super duper endgame stats, right? But that said, why would I use the Bard over the Chloromancer? Because the Chloromancer is just way stronger in terms of a boss killer, right? But obviously, you know, with Bard using magic damage, it means that I'm going to probably end up having to swap all of my gems off of my Chloromancer, which is a shame. Means that I got to end up rushing the rework Chloromancer video for you guys, talking about the build, talking about him at 35k, and so on and so forth. But either way, I hope that this ended up being a video that helped you guys out to understand how the Bard works. I know that it sounds complicated, but it's not as complex as it seems when you actually get the hang of it and start playing the character. In short, you're just going to be using your ult and then just pretty much following the DDR prompt that you can see down here to constantly build up your stacks. And then again, you know, you'll just kind of learn it as you go along, and it's not that big a deal. Otherwise, if you just want to be absolutely lazy, you can pretty much just use your ult twice so that you can end up getting the movement speed buff at all times, right? Because that's all you're really going to need, honestly speaking. It's just when you're at the end game and then actually in U10, you're going to end up defeating bosses way faster if you end up getting to that 7 stack. But anyways, thanks for watching, gamers. Really excited that this guy's coming out. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, and have yourselves a fantastic day.